Movie release schedules are constantly in flux, but this is especially true in our 2-year and counting pandemic era. No matter how studios try to time their release strategies to avoid COVID-19 surges or take advantage of relaxed restrictions, they never seem to come out quite right. And sometimes those mismatches don't seem to matter, as when Spider-Man No Way Home became the biggest blockbuster in years, just as the Omicron variant was sweeping the United States, while virtually every other holiday release underperformed or outright bombed. However, between streaming services and the still thriving theater industry, there will be plenty of movies to watch in 2022, regardless of how they are distributed. Here are more than 50 titles with tentative release dates, plus another 20 or so that don't yet have dates but will most certainly be available before this time next year. You'll notice that many of the unreleased titles are from Netflix. Streaming providers don't usually call their release dates as early as those in cinemas. However, here's what we do know. Number 10. Jurassic World Dominion. J.J. Abrams replaced Colin Trevorrow as director of Star Wars Episode 9, returning to complete the trilogy he began. Now Trevorrow does the same as he returns to an altered Jurassic world. Dinosaurs finally left the island park at the end of Fallen Kingdom. 4 years later, it truly is a Jurassic world, with dinosaurs wreaking havoc all across the world. In what appears to be Trevorrow's final attempt to please as many masses as possible, world staples Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard return, as do legacy cast members Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum. Number 9. Mission: Impossible 7. Despite the fact that Mission: Impossible Fallout was only 3 years behind Rogue Nation, the universe recognized that this was not the Mission: Impossible method. The series has typically taken 4 to 5 year gaps between installments. Real life interfered, pushing Tom Cruise and his normal cast, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and Rebecca Ferguson, to a release date 4 years after Fallout. We don't know much about the plot or the eventual title, but we can confirm the presence of a number of returning cast members: Vanessa Kirby from Fallout, Henry Czerny from the first film, and new characters played by Hayley Atwell, S.I. Morales, and Shi Wyam, among others. This is ostensibly the series' penultimate installment, with a direct sequel due out a year or two later. Number 8. Scream 5. No, it's not a remake, despite the title. It's simply following the new horror titling norm, in which a direct sequel is named after the previous film. This is Scream 5 from start to finish, with Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette all returning over a decade after Scream 4, which was itself nearly a decade after Scream 3. However, one significant alteration has occurred. Director Wes Craven has recently died away, Scream 4 being his final film, and the reins have been taken over by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett, the duo behind the frantic horror farce Ready or Not. Plot information are being kept under wraps, but if this one doesn't work out, Scream 6 will be released in 2030. Number 7. Uncharted. Someone finally finished an Uncharted movie after what appears to be decades of stop-start progress, with a long line of stars and filmmakers who were linked to an adaptation of this popular video game series before jumping out. That someone is Zombieland director Ruben Fleischer, who stars Tom Holland as treasure hunter Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as his wisecracking psychic Sully. This is the pair's Genesis narrative, and it appears to be part of a bigger tendency to resurrect the Indiana Jones-style action-adventure caper film, along with Red Notice and The Lost City. Number 6. Creed 3. Ryan Coogler's first blockbuster character squares off against his second, as Creed 3 arrives just a few weeks after Black Panther 2, at least per the current calendar. Michael B. Jordan directs this threequel, following in the footsteps of previous co-star Sylvester Stallone. With no firm idea or production dates, it's difficult to predict whether this will be released in time for Thanksgiving, although Tessa Thompson is set to return alongside Jordan. Number 5. The Batman. Remember how long it took between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins? The days of waiting nearly a decade for a reboot are over. Robert Pattinson's debut as the Caped Crusader arrives 4.5 years after the character's most recent appearance in Justice League, marking the longest period of Batman-free cinemas since the post-Clooney era. Though this creepy-looking take on the Bat has already spawned several HBO Max spin-offs, it has nothing to do with the current DC multiverse, where Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck's incarnations will collide later this year. Instead, Matt Reeves appears to have created a creepier and more gnarly version than either the operatic Snyder or the crime movie Man versions. The film appears to be influenced in part by The Long Halloween, and it goes all in on the Rogues Gallery, with characters like as the Riddler Paul Dano, the Penguin, Colin Farrell, and Catwoman, Zoe Kravitz, among others. Number 4. Aquaman 2. The DCU's surprising billion-dollar success story returns with a new fantasy adventure directed by James Wan, who brought a colorful, cartoony honesty to the first picture. Lost Kingdom is rumored to delve deeper and darker into Aquaman mythos than its predecessor. At the very least, it has an appropriately Indiana Jones-y title. Jason Momoa reprises his famous role, with Amber Heard's Mera, Patrick Wilson's Orm, Yoya Abdul-Mateen Black Manta, and we can only guess, the Brine King. Number 3. Avatar 2. Aquaman will not only be fought against Black Manta. If he maintains his release date, he will also be pitted against a 13 years later Avatar sequel, which allegedly has an underwater component of its own. In the many years since James Cameron's first Avatar, 1 year longer than the massive amount of time that had elapsed between Titanic's 1997 release and Avatar's 2009 bow, it's become a fashionable pastime to inquire about its cultural footprint, as if the film collected $2.5 billion worldwide purely by chance. But assuming indifference toward James Cameron's passionate workings is rarely a wise bet, and in all likelihood he's cooked up something eye-catching and exciting for his first sequel since Terminator 2. Number 2. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. According to the Part 1 tacked to the current teaser trailer, the most adored Spider-Man film of all time is getting a sequel, or two. Spider-Gwen, Haley Steinfeld, returns to the universe of Miles Morales, Shameik Moore, as hinted at the close of the previous animated adventure, and casting announcements include Spider-Woman, Issa Rae, and Spider-Man 2099, Oscar Isaac. Number 1. Black Panther Wakanda Forever. When boundlessly talented actor Chadwick Boseman died in 2020, an MCU must-see became a heartbreaking question mark. The fact that Boseman's role as T'Challa would not be recast adds a layer of intrigue to Ryan Coogler's follow-up to his 2018 original. T'Challa will be written out of the plot in some way, and another character will take his place. From Shuri, Letitia Wright, to Okoye, Danai Gurira, to Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o, to M'Baku, the ensemble has no shortage of talented alternatives. Winston Duke.